I have a question for you guys. How many of you remember the fable of the goose and the golden egg? For some of you, it's been a long time since you heard that story. For others, it may not be as long, especially if you've listened into any of the Stephen Covey training. But if you don't remember the fable or the story, that's all right. I'll give you a quick little rundown. Now, as I'm telling you this story, remember, I'm taking some creative liberties. So I'm telling you my version of the story. I've added some stuff, I've removed some stuff. But ultimately, the premise is the same, and the moral of the story is the same as well. So our story begins with a farmer. Now, for me, when I picture a farm, I think of something like we drive by, every day out here in Dade City, Florida. Well, as he's tending to his farm, he goes out and he wants to check on his livestock. Goes into his barn, and in his barn, he happens to have geese. He keeps them in a pen. So he opens up the pen to let them out for the day, and he goes in there to start cleaning it up. Well, he's in one of the nesting areas, and he notices there's something strange. It looks like an egg, but it has a little bit of a metallic hue to it. So he reaches down, he grabs it, and the first thing he notices, this thing has some heft to it. So when you notice something's odd and it's a little heavy, what's the first thing we do? We tap it on something, right? So he taps this egg on something. It doesn't crack. All right, wipes it off a little bit. It's a little shiny. All right, I'm going to investigate this later, he thinks. He puts it in his little pouch, continues on with his chores. Now, eventually, lunchtime happens. So he goes inside, sits down for lunch, and he pulls this odd egg that he put into his pouch earlier in the day. He's looking at it, he wipes off the rest of it. And again, it looks gold. And he takes out his little pocket knife, he starts scraping at it. Man, this thing's, again, it's solid, and little flakes of gold are coming off. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go into town later. I'm going to take the rest of the day off. I'm going to get this thing looked at. So again, when I think of going into town, I think of, the area I live in. There's not a lot of jewelers in the area, so he probably went to a local pawn shop, right? We buy silver and gold is usually what the signs will say. Anyways, he goes in there, he hands the clerk this gold-looking egg. He's like, hey, can you look into this? Clerk looks at it, does a little test. He does a core sample on it to see if it is really gold, and if it is gold, is it gold all the way through? Well, sure enough, this thing is solid gold. So he offers the farmer some money for it. The farmer accepts. He's thrilled. He heads back home, tells his wife, hey, this is how much money we made for this egg. So he finishes up the chores as well later on that day. And the next day, he wakes up, does the same thing. It's a routine for him. So he gets up, puts his boots on, heads right back out to the barn, does the same routine, lets the geese out. And what do you know? There's another golden egg. Man, this dude is thrilled. Goes in, tells his wife, hey, there's another golden egg. So the same thing continues to happen. Goes into town, sells this egg, gets some cash. Next morning, wakes back up, another egg. So this happens day in and day out. It becomes part of the routine. Well, as with anything, it's starting to come a little easy, right? Well, he starts neglecting some different aspects. He's not putting as much time into tending to that pen. He's not looking after all of the rest of the livestock as much as he once was. And ultimately, he starts, getting he starts expecting these eggs just to appear without putting any time into figure out why that egg's there or how to get more of them. He starts measuring his eggs, he starts weighing them every day. And, ultimately, he just bought a boat. It's got a lot of expenses. He wants more money, and he wants it now. So he's talking to his wife. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go out there. I'm going to get all these eggs at once. So he's going to kill the goose. I know it got a little dark there, but stay with me. He goes out to the barn. He does the deed. He opens up the goose. And guess what he finds? A whole bunch of nothing. There's no golden eggs. And now he's just destroyed the only way that he was able to get any golden eggs. All he's left with is just basically a meal, right? Now, what does this whole thing mean? Well, if you're familiar with the Stephen Covey training and the 7 Habits of Effective People, he describes this as a balance between production and your production capability. So it's what is produced and our ability to produce. And when you start applying that to your own life, and when I look at my life with it, I think, when was the last time you invested in yourself? When was the last time you put some effort in developing you to get a better product? So basically, what I needed to take away from this story is spend some time and invest in the Goose. Invest in yourself so that you can get a higher quality product, get a better result. If you enjoyed this video, let me know your thoughts. What do you think? What did you take away from this story? There's a lot of different principles and some underlying morals throughout the story. Did you like my version? Please let me know. Thanks for listening, guys.